Hello and welcome. Two-time Oscar winner Jack Lemmon was nominated as Best Actor for this role as the desperate father in search of his disappeared son in the controversial film Missing. Based on a true story, it's set in Chile 1973-74 against the backdrop of the military coup d'etat which was supported by the US government to replace President Salvador Allende. But shortly after the film was released, the US State Department issued a lengthy denial about aspects and incidents in the film. At the time, Jack was one of Hollywood's most versatile stars. He'd won Oscars for his performances in Mr. Roberts and Save the Tiger, and throughout his career was nominated 8 times. His other films included The Front Page, Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, The Odd Couple, JFK, and The China Syndrome. However, the official government reactions to Missing triggered public controversy, personal insults directed at Jack, and unexpected boosts to its box office takings. It was certainly a challenging role, but as Jack explained to me, he took it for a number of reasons.
Jack, I assume that it was a very important role, but why for you was it so important to do this particular film?
Really a number of reasons. It was a highly literate script. I loved the story in the script, and I didn't have the foggiest notion of how to play the part, which is good, because if you do know, then I see no reason to play it. You know, there is no challenge, there is no nothing. You know, younger actors say I need to stretch myself. Well, they're right. You know, you're always going to do a better job if you're a little uncertain about how to do it. And meaning also you haven't played it before. You're not going to kick it off your heel. You're going to really try to work at it. Also, I felt it was one of those rare films. I also felt this about China Syndrome. It was just purely a coincidence that the two were that close together, because neither of them did I choose because of any political points of view. I happen to agree with both political points of view, whatever they were, in both films, but that is not the reason why. I took them because the actor wanted to do them. Also, the people that I was working with. I had admired Costa-Gavras. I think he is one of those rare directors that goes beyond being a good director. He is a marvelous filmmaker. In other words,
yes, I couldn't agree more.
He's terrific, because I've worked, as most actors have, I'm sure, at many points in their career, with good directors from scene to scene. In other words, there might be other directors that could direct an individual scene as well as Costa. But it's like going into a jeweler and saying, bring your finest pearls out. And he puts down a piece of velvet and he pours a couple of dozen pearls. And each one of those pearls is just absolutely marvelous. And they're laying there. You say, oh my God, those are beautiful jewels. Would you put a strand through them, please? And he puts a strand through and he holds the necklace up and something's wrong. It just doesn't quite work, but the individual pearls are marvelous. The director can make the individual pearl, but so the filmmaker makes a beautiful strand, and there is a difference. And he's one of the few, I think, that is
capable of doing that.
Yeah.
After analyzing all the data, we still come to the conclusion that he must be in hiding.
You know damn well he's not in hiding. Our whole neighborhood saw him picked up by a goon squad.
What stupid thing did Charles do?
He was a bit of a snoop.
Your son's a pretty popular guy around here.
Poked his nose around in a lot of dangerous places.
All of a sudden, this place is like a free fire zone. They shoot at you just for being left-handed.
I'm surprised, I guess, that political reasons weren't at the forefront of you taking the role.
No.
What about political qualms at all about doing it in America, where you obviously left yourself open?
Yes, I'll tell you quite frankly, I expected more negative reaction. There's been very little, aside from our State Department, who hated it, naturally, well, all to our advantage. I expected more, but there's been very little. However, I think the reason that there has been very little is also one of the reasons why I admired the script and wanted to do it, aside from working with Costa and Sissy and that cast. It's because basically it stands on its own as a very strong dramatic entity. It's a very marvelous story. It's a love story, really, about polarized generations, a father and a daughter-in-law that are absolutely poles apart in the beginning, and really do not like each other or respect each other, that slowly grow through a common tragedy together and come to love each other, let alone respect each other. And that story is much stronger and is the root of the film. The icing on the cake is any political points of view that it has.
You mentioned the State Department. Well, how did they react to the film, in fact?
Well, a novel was written about what had happened to Ed Horman, the character I play, and Joyce, my daughter-in-law, in, 74, during the Chilean coup, when a young American boy, my son, who was there with his wife, just disappears suddenly. An American citizen disappears. And in going down there and trying to find him and getting shafted, frankly, by the State Department, or certainly short shrift, there was a novel written about it. The State Department didn't say boo, because the novel was not a great big bestseller. Now the film came out, and it fortunately got great critical acclaim, and it was a smash hit. You couldn't get in. So about 3 or 4 days after it opened, then the State Department said, my God, we've got a hot potato here. So they issued a very lengthy, I think 300-400 word diatribe against the film, saying this is not true, these are not factual incidents, this did not happen, etc., which is a lot of baloney. But nevertheless, they felt they had to take a stand. Well, all that did was entice more people into the theater. They were saying, I wonder what this is. What is the big stink about this, you see? Yeah. Took it off the entertainment pages and put it on the editorial pages. So that's what happened then.
Yeah. I don't want to hear any of your anti-establishment paranoia.
Why don't you just go home? I'll find my husband by myself.
There are even people who think it may have been his idea to make it look like they're arresting Americans.
They are arresting Americans.
What kind of world is this?
You were quoted, I think, in the Los Angeles Times as saying that, it's quite possible that people will call you a commie for, I suppose, for doing the film and for stating your beliefs.
I've only gotten 2 letters so far that said, well, you get out of here, go home to Russia, you're un-American, you commie, son of a gun, and so forth. There's only been a couple. I expected more, as I said, I really did. Yeah. But I think it's, as I said, because it is a strong story about people that we can care about.
Yeah. Did the reality of the story undermine your sort of belief in the U.S. government and what they stood for?
No, I think it's very pro-American, quite frankly, because, and it didn't undermine it at all. What it did, I'll get back to that, but what it did do is make me more aware. I think Americans are, possibly because geographically, we're very isolated. We are not surrounded by other countries. And we tend to think that if something's happening way over here or whatever, that's, well, I don't know, I guess everything is all right. And you read the front page or in the first couple of paragraphs or whatever, and let it go at that. We're kind of naive that way, I think. And it made me more aware, I know. And I think, and I hope, that the picture will make people more inquisitive and less apt to just accept what we read as being the truth, because that's not always the case.
If you had stayed where you belong and paid a little attention to the basics, this never would have happened.
I don't want to fight with you. I just want to get Charlie back. Do you think he's dead?
I'm not going to leave this country till I find my son, alive or dead. Just go anywhere, in any way. You can tie my hands, you can blindfold me. I just want my boy back. He's the only child I have.
I certainly was a lot more interested in going just beyond headlines about what the American government's involvement in El Salvador was, or Nicaragua, or whatever. Now I'm more aware, much more aware, because at the time, in 74, just as a grown, somewhat intelligent man, I just accepted whatever I read on the front page, and I didn't have any idea what was really going on until I got involved in the film and started really researching, and then going back and reading it. It's a little scary.
Because of course all of that too meant that you couldn't actually go into Chile to make the film.
No,
needless to say.
No,
so where was
we
it shot?
shot it in Mexico, in and around Mexico City. Some of it, prior to my scenes, were shot in Acapulco, but the majority of it was shot in and around Mexico City.
Can we just talk generally, getting away from that film? in one of the interviews I did with you by phone, that marvellous medium that we have, I suggested to you that most of the characters you play, or have played over the years, are flawed. And you thought that was probably a reasonable observation.
Yes, I think you're right.
Is Horman flawed? I mean, do you see...
Yes, he is. As a matter of fact, in my approach to the part, and Costa agreed with me, as I mentioned before, he really does not respect his daughter-in-law, and which broke his heart, but nevertheless, he did not respect his son. He thought of them as young hippies. What is my son doing, saying, I want to travel through South and Central America. I want to see the world as it really is and not through the eyes of the media. When, in my opinion, if he was a good, upstanding boy, like any other normal United States of America citizen, he would be home working, he'd be where he should be. Well, I went even further than that. I made him really upset. And although he felt that he had strong opinions, he was really opinionated. And there's a fine line that's a very definite line. Opinionated is almost like being bigoted. I mean, you cannot be moved. You're like a rock. But he did have the capacity to be moved. But he gave him farther to go dramatically in the change that evolved as he slowly respected and grew to love his daughter, and ironically grew to love his son and respect him. But it was after he knew him and was with him. It was too late.
For you, is it now the most important role that you've done, do you think?
It's as important as any, and maybe the most important. I do realize that being the last part of the good fortune that I've had of a number of marvelous parts, I think that emotionally, the latest one that really was a crackerjack may seem the most important to you because it is the latest one, and it's still so fresh. It supplants the others, you know. But I think if I had to pick one, which would be difficult with the good fortune I've had, I would pick this. You know.
Jack Lemmon, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Good to see you in person.
Jack Lemmon accumulated more than 100 credits in an extraordinary career in which he won Best Actor awards around the world, including a number at the Cannes Film Festival. In 1988, he received the Life Achievement Award from the American Film Institute. His last performance was uncredited as the narrator Old Hardy Greaves in The Legend of Bagger Vance in 2000. Jack died in June 2001 in Los Angeles from bladder cancer.